Ladies and gentlemen, hit subscribe to this channel right now. My voice is going to be very important for the next 4 years. Your voice is going to be very important for the next 4 years. We have to find peaceful and legal ways to regain political influence and political power. President Trump has been a fantastic president for the past 4 years. None of his achievements have been even acknowledged. Forget about championed by media. They haven't even acknowledged record low unemployment. When there was record low unemployment, when he was the first president to step foot in North Korea, to begin détente between North and South Korea, where President Moon Jae-in stated that Trump deserved the Nobel Peace Prize, when he was the only president to allocate more funding, or I should say President Trump allocated more funding to historically black colleges and universities than any president ever, made that funding permanent. Nobody talked about it. Hit subscribe to this channel because I'm going to give you context and nuance and how to regain what's rightfully ours. Ladies and gentlemen, they're trying to erase this man from history. Twitter has now banned President Trump forever. And why Twitter says it banned Trump? Well, they're looking into his words. First of all, they have no right to do that from a First Amendment perspective. It's their platform, and they come up with absurd reasons to go after conservatives and to completely ignore the same behavior from liberals and Democrats. Simply pointing out the duplicity and the disingenuous nature of these platforms, that's not going to help right now. We need to find a roadmap or a strategy that's peaceful, that's legal. I want to go ahead and they tweeted because he glorified really bad behavior. I don't even want to use the words because nowadays the algorithm is like, definitely hit subscribe if you enjoy my voice. Tell your friends about this channel because I not only have to deal with the algorithm issues, but I have to deal with people who are like, I wouldn't say blaming me, but people who don't like me to address the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation is that whether you want to say he conceded or whether you want to say that he's still battling politically, whether you want to say that all is lost or whether you want to say, oh, I don't agree with you on making sure the political party, the Republican Party, becomes a purely populist party. And not an establishment Republican Party, or whether or not you agree with me that Pence and McConnell stabbed President Trump politically in the back, and others, well, Ben Sasse and Mitt Romney, of course. You shouldn't, it's not just me, you shouldn't take it out on voices that are kind of trying to tell you what's going on in a rational, sober, thoughtful manner. I have looked at everything from the vantage point of somebody who supports President Trump and somebody who thinks he's been a fantastic president, the best president of my lifetime. There have been some missteps. Lately, there have been some missteps. Democrats view him to be Freddy Krueger, Jason from Friday the 13th in the White House. They're going to try to erase this man from history. And they're going to try to erase, like, the supporters of President Trump. I should say, they're going to try to pretend that nobody supported him. And this banning him from Twitter is just one example of what they're going to do. Books will be written. Oh my God, he was the worst. He was so horrible. And the next 4 years with Biden, you'll see how the press treats Biden. You'll see how the press treats Biden through controversies or scandals or through failures. It will never be his fault. But here, they banned President Trump for glorifying really bad things. It's like, what? He talked about how he won't be going to the inauguration, and then Twitter said, well, this means to some of his supporters that he has contested, or he doesn't. He won't concede the election. I don't know what President Trump's statement will not be attending the inauguration is being received by a number of his supporters as further confirmation that the election was not legitimate. Okay, so what they're saying is anything that he says is confirmation of thoughts and emotions we don't want you to feel, because then you'll be committing activities that are illegal, like we saw the other day. Everything is now Trump's fault directly. Do you understand how this is working? There's zero logic anymore. And I have to say something, ladies and gentlemen. There's zero logic within media and among liberals and among Democrats, but I'm telling you, you can't act in the same kind of irrational manner by going after the messenger, whether it's unsubscribing from this channel or another channel, or just saying, well, you're giving up. It's like the political battle has already taken place. There is unfortunately somebody who's won, and unfortunately we have not won. We've lost. Okay? We're going to have Biden as president for 4 years. What are we going to do peacefully and legally to overcome this type of bizarre viewpoint? Oh, well, his words are now being taken by supporters as, how is it Twitter's job? How is it Twitter's job to decipher or to enter the minds of Trump supporters, 74 million Americans? Did Twitter do the same thing for left-leaning organizations that when they protested, miraculously $1 to $2 billion worth of property loss took place? Did they react in the same way? Businesses were torched. All of these things took place. They didn't. They're closing in, ladies and gentlemen. And now is not the time to, and this is not a plea for subs, because I know, people, I've lost about, 1,000 subs in the past day simply for saying Trump conceded. This is not a good thing in terms of, whether you say that he didn't say the word, he's not going to be there. And I know that he doesn't feel the process has been fair. And I know that he thinks that the Democrats and you and I also agree that there was a DNC primary on a grandiose scale. But what does that have to do with discussing and addressing the reality of the situation? You cannot simply say, God will help us. God, if anything, God helped Biden. He did. God did not help us this election. He helped Biden, unfortunately. So Biden's going to be there for 4 years. We need, if there's a Peter Navarro report, it needs to be investigated, which is what Ted Cruz was talking about, Josh Hawley. These people's voices need to be elevated. Josh Hawley, what are they going to do now? Are they going to ban Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley? Are they going to ban Rand Paul, Ron Johnson? Are they going to ban the 100-plus Republicans in the House? You have McConnell and Pence who are absolutely silent now. So Twitter has basically, the Democrats have actually given up whatever mandate they had by banning Trump from Twitter, because their lives revolved around condemning his tweets. Now that they don't have that, they've probably opened up a Pandora's box. President Trump should start a completely new media platform. And they're going after the conservative platforms now. This is, let's see, what are they, Parler, I heard? Let's see. Let's see, what's going on with... Apple has threatened to ban Parler from App Store. It's Apple gives Parler a 24-hour ultimatum. Google blocks app from store. Okay, so, look. You need to be able to, I have a Rumble channel, so that's below. But ladies and gentlemen, you need to elevate voices, even the voices that annoy you. So if you, it's not about me, but I find it very bizarre. If you listened to me for weeks on end, and you liked what I had to say, and then I'm unsubscribing because you used the word concede, and Trump did not use the word concede. Ladies and gentlemen, with all due respect, that mentality is why we're in this position. Because that has nothing to do with political influence and political power and changing the Republican Party. They're trying to, you know what Biden said today? He said, oh yeah, well, we need a strong opposition from the Republican Party, a principled opposition. He's referring to Romney and Ben Sasse because they're two sides of the same coin. You think that he cares about Romney and Ben Sasse taking the presidency away from him? He'll go 8 years if Republicans go the way of Ben Sasse and Romney. So I mean, there has to be. They're circling the wagons. They're closing in, people. Now is the time. It's not just to support this channel, but now is the time to read reputable sources. I'm talking conservative, reputable. If you support President Trump, then read conservative publications that have backed President Trump, or that have at least given a vantage point that represents the viewpoints of Trump supporters. They're trying to erase the last 4 years from history. This is not only Orwellian and not only what despots and authoritarians do, but what the way liberals work is they do it with kindness. They say, well, just look what happened now. Look what happened. They got the Capitol, and then now the repercussion is President Trump's ban from Twitter. How did that benefit us? It didn't benefit us. Simply doing things without a strategy, without a long-term objective or strategy, is not only useless, it's counterproductive. Now every single Republican out there is going to say, well, maybe we should, or a lot of these people are going to say, maybe we should go to Ben Sasse and Mitt Romney. And then Republicans will lose forever, and then you'll have Democrats forever. I don't want counterinsurgency. I want Americans home from counterinsurgency conflicts. I want an end to America's quagmires and counterinsurgency wars where we send Americans off. I want to bring Americans home to their families, to their friends, to their loved ones. I want to bring Americans home. We should never have been there for around 20 years now. The children of veterans who served in those regions are now serving themselves. There was an article. That's never happened before in a military conflict in American history. It's never happened before. Now, look at, this is just, Lord knows what they're going to do in the next 12 days. But, ladies and gentlemen, they want to impeach President Trump. And simply saying, well, arrests are going to happen, and this message board says this, and Q, and that is a dangerous, absurd, hoax, people. But again, it's my feelings and your feelings are not what counts at this moment. It's about acquiring and regaining political influence in Washington. Democrats have thrown everything at Trump and Trump supporters, including the kitchen sink. They never gave him a moment's rest. They blamed him for everything. They accused him with baseless allegations. And there was no support from the Republican Party because the Republicans actually investigated Trump. The second tweet may also encourage those potentially considering the use of American patriots to describe something as also being interpreted as. So it's it's not what he says. It's what they interpret. It's what they think potentially others are going to interpret what he says. So they don't even, there's no logic. There's no logic or reason. But see, again, I don't have Twitter. I don't have Facebook because of this type of thing. It's like Tron. It's like the movie Tron? It's like Tron for liberals. It's another world they live in. Now they won't have Trump to obsess over. So I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what they're going to do. So, they did this to Bernie Sanders first, but Bernie Sanders was a willing participant. He was almost certainly an actor with all of this. He played the role of somebody who was a populist on the left who could have won, and he tried, but he failed. It's like they were never going to let him win. Debbie Wasserman Schultz was forced to resign in disgrace I bring that up forever because this is the DNC primary and then the DNC primary on steroids. But there were missteps, people. We didn't address the media onslaught. There's no counter to the media message. And the only counter is not just my channel. There are people, supporters of President Trump like myself, who are like, I don't like this person and that person, and this person is upsetting me. It's like, it's not about whether you believe that one day these arrests are going to take place or, we need a strategy, a political strategy. What are you going to support? Like Devin Nunes and Matt Gaetz or Jim Jordan, or are you going to vote for Mitt Romney and Ben Sass? Are there platforms other than Twitter or Facebook, or are there publications you're going to support, like Just the News or the Daily Caller or the Federalist? These are conservative publications. The National Review, if you're more of an establishment type of conservative Republican. The Wall Street Journal, I think, is the last major publication or newspaper that is somewhat objective. I think the Wall Street Journal is the best. There should be more conservatives writing in the Wall Street Journal. I'm not necessarily conservative on a lot of things, but there needs to be a vantage point that pushes a national dialogue or debate. There's no political discourse is a virtual monopoly. The Democrats have a virtual monopoly on political discourse in this country. And despite the fact that President Trump got the greatest percentage of non-white voters of any Republican candidate, Republicans, they just cower. Look what Lisa Murkowski today stated, that Trump should resign. He's done enough damage. People, showing discontent is being angry and frustrated. Like I am frustrated, but being angry and frustrated is not a political tactic. It works for the left because they run their journalists are not objective. So they have CNN, MSNBC, The Washington Post, The New York Times, Vanity Fair, Esquire. They have all of Hollywood. They have tech companies. They have, every algorithm is. So, and still they lost in 2015 and 2016. We can get back political power and influence. It's happened before. It'll happen again. We'll get back the House in 2022. I hope that Biden is a good president. I don't see the country prospering in the next 4 years. We'll get back to normal, hopefully. Okay, but we would have gotten back to normal with President Trump as well. But Democrats were never going to allow their temper tantrum worked. So in a way, their discontent was filtered through popular culture, media, politics. We don't have that luxury, so we have to be strategic. We can't just simply say we're upset. It's not going to work in the same manner. They stomped their feet and they had a temper tantrum for 4 years every day. It worked for them. It worked for them. And if you want to say, well, look, you know what? There was malarkey. Okay, that needs to be investigated. The Peter Navarro report, the affidavits, they need to be investigated. But see, there needs to be political will for that. There needs to be a message sent that if you are a rhino or if you are an establishment, the other side of the coin from Pelosi, if you're a Bush neoconservative or a Ben Sass and Mitt Romney type person, you're not going to get votes. During Republican primaries in the next 2 years for the House and the Senate, you need to vote for the populist candidate. That is important. That's one way you regain political power. But ladies and gentlemen, the future is bright. You have to make it bright. You have to make it bright through peaceful and legal and strategic means and tactics. And you can't listen to message boards, people. And you can't just simply unsub from people that say something you don't like because it's, oh my God, it's like blasphemy. We're all on the same page, but there has to be people have to acknowledge what the left, the advantages that the left has. which are many. They have more advantages than we have. And it's still President Trump won in 2015, and he was able to achieve a lot of great things in terms of foreign policy. President Trump's track record has been a very good track record in terms of accomplishments. But see, what Trump didn't realize is that, and I think what Trump supporters don't realize is, because I came from the left and I can tell you, the country, Democrats in general, and a great many people in the country, I should say, Democrats especially, liberals, they don't judge achievement by like record low unemployment or peace deals. They judge achievement and they judge a legacy by media coverage. President Obama's legacy is pretty much non-existent. If you ask a Democrat, well, what's his lasting achievement, they won't tell you a specific policy aside from the ACA. There's certainly no foreign policy achievements aside from destroying Libya and getting us into further never-ending counterinsurgency conflicts. President Trump's lasting achievement will be North Korea and South Korea and détente that he helped further, where Moon Jae-in, like I said, the president of South Korea, stated he deserved the Nobel Peace Prize. This is a great thing. We don't have that without President Trump. And then Israel, UAE, Bahrain, Serbia, Kosovo. You have these peace deals, the Abraham Accords. You have these peace deals that would never have taken place with Biden or Clinton. And we had record low unemployment for the majority of his tenure. The pandemic was not Trump's fault. He did not say, look at, if the pandemic is his fault, is Cuomo and Philip Murphy, are they culpable for everything that took place in New York and New Jersey? You have to look at things from the vantage point of, okay, there's duplicity and there's hypocrisy, okay? How do we promote a national dialogue? How do we elevate President Trump and champion his achievements and publicize and amplify what he's accomplished? Because they're going to try to erase him from history. They're going to try to erase this man and everything he accomplished from historical record. Just like the revisionist historian AOC, that Yad Vashem actually condemned for her statements pertaining to, for her revisionist history that was purely anti-Semitic. And I wrote about that in the Jerusalem Post. She got called out by Yad Vashem in Jerusalem. And yet, again, nobody acknowledges these things. President Trump is the only president to sign an executive order combating anti-Semitism on college campuses. That the definition of the word being utilized by was defined by the IHRA, as defined by the IHRA. I repeat myself a lot in these segments, but my God, it's important. I'm giving you a vantage point, ladies and gentlemen, that it's not, nobody's talking about these things, so I repeat myself a lot. Get this segment viral. People, all is not lost. The sky is not falling. The future is bright. The future is bright. There's even a silver lining to all of this. There's a tremendous amount of political influence in being the opposition party. But the opposition has to be unified in its voice. You can't have the Jeb Bushes of the world trying to take back the Republican Party, because that's exactly what Democrats want, because they can easily defeat that type of person. That type of person gets the same amount of people. That type of person, like the exhumed body that's president now, couldn't fit a phone booth full of supporters. Couldn't fit a phone booth full of people that are really passionate about, their message. Bernie Sanders and Trump. Bernie Sanders was the populist on the left. President Trump was the populist among conservatives or Republicans. President Trump won. What they did to Trump, they would have done to Bernie Sanders. The difference is that Bernie Sanders didn't even have what it took to battle a corrupt system. And he didn't give his voters anything. They're not getting Medicare for all. That thing is a gigantic racket. If you can't see that, if you're on the left and you happen to stumble upon this video, and you can't see that, or maybe if you're a former progressive watching this video like me, if you can't see it's a racket now, that they've actually, their true intentions have been pretty much revealed. They have no belief that Medicare for All is a viable political reality. It's a fantasy that they just dangle in front of voters. It's a racket where the grifters are the same people calling others grifters. They're the ones who are grifting. They have no intention. They just get $20 million in venture capital funding. But I got from President Trump, a president who reversed U.S. foreign policy, which is what I wanted from Bernie Sanders. I got it from Trump. So, lots of people got what they wanted in terms of policies from President Trump. He was a great president. As a Jewish American, he was the best president or the most supportive president for Israel. And like I said, signing the executive order, lots of things. For HBCUs, he gave more funding than any president ever. So, there are a lot of things. Prison reform legislation, a whole bunch of things for the country. NAFTA, signing, creating the USMCA. He did a lot of great things, but I need to write a book on talking about on his accomplishments and the fact that he went up against corrupt intelligence officials that try to set him up and frame him. This man has been wrongfully accused, maligned throughout the past 4 years, and they said he wasn't presidential. They never treated him like a president. We need to rebound, people. And you can't, I'm not speaking to my loyal subscribers. I'm speaking to people who just, I'm unsubbing. It's like, that's not going to help anyone. You can unsub or sub back. It's not going to help anyone. You need to there has to be a legal and peaceful roadmap towards regaining political power and influence. The future is bright. Keep watching this channel. I'm going to look. This is like therapeutic for me as well. If you enjoy my voice, if you're to my 26-minute crowd, if you've watched the whole segment, I thank you very much. You're helping me get through all of this as well. I hope I'm helping you. Give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe. I'll be back in a couple of hours. Thanks, everybody.